Hi, I'm Lisa Gonzales, Chief Business Officer here in Mount Diablo Unified. And in this week's episode of Ask the CBO, I am going to talk a little bit about the difference between off and on schedule increases. So let me just briefly explain a little bit about each. Off schedule means it's one time. It means you pay at one time and it doesn't continue to come up as an ongoing expense. A good example of this is the $1,500 stipends, where we used one-time funds to provide each employee with $1,500. That happened one time. That would be considered off schedule, as opposed to on schedule, where if you give an increase, the increase goes on our salary schedule and it is expected to continue year after year. Therefore, you have to factor it into the budget, or as we like to say, it compounds. So we're going to do an exercise. I'm going to make this as simple as possible. So there are some things that I'm going to have as assumptions, and then there are going to be a number of things that I'm not going to take into account. For example, assumptions. We're going to assume that every staff member is there year after year after year. So the number of staff members stays exactly the same. We're going to assume our salary costs in an organization are $200 million. We're going to compare 1% on schedule and 1% off schedule. And certainly if you wanted to use other figures, you could increase those percentages as well, but we're going to keep it simple here. And then we're going to assume that if 1% is given during a year, it is paid out in that year. There are three big things that we're not taking into account because they're going to complicate the matter. It will require us additional accounting for all of these because they do drive the costs up. But again, I want to keep it simple. So we are not taking into account STRS, our state teachers retirement system increases. We're not accounting for PERS increases for the retirement system for public employees, and step and column, which is approximately 2% of all of our step and column averages across all of our groups each year. We are not going to include that. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to give 1% off schedule for 3 consecutive years. Our salaries are $200 million. 1% is $2 million. We would have $2 million that would go to all of our employees. The next year, our salaries would still be $200 million. And again, our 1% off schedule, $2 million, that gets divvied up. And then in the third year, our salaries are still $200 million, 1% off schedule. One time we divvy out the $2 million. So after 3 years, our salary costs would be $202 million, which is the 200 plus the 2 million in the first column, plus the same exact thing in the second column, plus the same exact thing in the third column. So 202 million plus 202 million plus 202 million, you get 606 million. Now, let's look at it on schedule. Again, we're starting with the same 200 million. 1% on schedule means that first year, our salary cost is 202 million, just like the year before, or the example before, excuse me, except the next year, your salaries rebench at the 202 million because it is on schedule. So then you add another 1%. This time it's $2,020,000. Your salary costs for that year, you can see, are 204 million. That becomes your benchmark for the following year, 204, plus your 1% on schedule. So now you can see the third year of your salary costs are $206 million. Now, after 3 years, your salary costs have been 202 million plus the 204 million, 20,000, plus the 206 million, $60,200. Again, nice round numbers. But after 3 years, when you're putting everything on schedule every year, your costs for salaries for those 3 years is up to 612 million. So let's just compare the two. Off schedule, your salaries would cost you 606 million. On schedule, they would cost you $612 million. So you can see as you go up in your percentages of on or off schedule, how it would impact the budget. Hope that helps explain it a little bit. If you've got any other questions, by all means, please send those to cbo@mdusd.org. Have a great week. Bye-bye.